when something good comes along, I can immediately do a 180 or a 90 degree turn on a dime.
It's Expat Life Germany, the show about Germany as seen through the eyes of outsiders. And this week we have Michael Silverman, and he is living in the United States of America. And he reached out to me a while ago with this message on Facebook. Listen to all your podcasts and listen to the new ones as they appear. Really good work and extremely helpful. Thank you and keep up the good work. Now, of course, I love getting messages like that. It's always great to hear from people who are listening and enjoying the show. And I always write back to those messages. And we got to talking. And after just a few exchanges, I realized that Michael is one of these very, very interesting people. He's got an affinity for Germany, and a lot of it comes from his family heritage. And Germany has certainly been a major factor in his life. And that was fascinating to me, that Germany could have such a huge impact on someone's life, even if they weren't actually physically living here. So I threw out the idea, hey, Michael, why don't you come on the show? And he agreed, and I'm so glad that he did. We discuss in this episode how he came to Germany to study German in the 80s. We also go into how his Jewish grandparents were forced to leave Germany during the Third Reich. And it's very, very interesting to hear the effect that Germany has had on his life from afar. So here we go. It's Michael Silverman talking about his German love affair. So my guest this week is not actually in Germany, but he spent some time in Germany way back in the 80s. I have on the line Michael Silverman. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Sean. And in light of the fact that I do know you come from South Africa, I would like to offer this. Goedgehandeld.
Baie goed, dankie. You've been hanging around some South Africans, have you?
A lot of South Africans. I know a lot of people over there and over here. I don't know why it worked out that way, but what can I tell you? When you live to be my age, you tend to run into a lot of people.
We're kind of all over the world. What do you think of South Africans? They're a nice bunch of people, right?
They're a wonderful group of people, very hardworking, very ethical. Yeah. I know several in the business community here in Los Angeles, many actually. And then I also know several in the religious community that started over online with online congregations over in South Africa and it brought it over here. So it runs the whole gamut.
Huh. There we go. So I have to start with this, Michael. When we were scheduling this appointment, I suggested the date that I wanted to record on, and you said, it might work out, but I'm kind of busy that day. And I'll quote the reason that you gave me. You said, it has to do with a business thing and also tattooing a famous basketball player and me getting a couple of tattoos as well. Is that what happened today?
That almost happened today. It was supposed to happen today. It was postponed a bit, and we're going to have to get back to that because the individual who's going to do the tattooing, who owns a tattoo shop here in Los Angeles, but also lives on a 40-acre property outside of Nashville, Tennessee, his daughter got sick at school at the last moment, so he's there with her. So that was put off, but that will happen, and the tattooing is actually a very interesting thing to talk about because the basketball player only gets tattoos from this individual for the last 10 years over the summer when he's not playing that are very meaningful to him. He's got an issue with depression and something he talked about a lot online, and he's gotten a lot of feedback from that. He posted something on his Twitter, and all of a sudden he was being interviewed by all the major news outlets. So in along with that, I was going to get a tattoo with a combination of the American and German flag because, as you now know, ich habe die doppelte Staatsbürgerschaft.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to be able to say that.
That's great. That's what we're going to get to. That we're going to get to that. I kind of want to ask who the basketball player is, but I guess you're not at liberty to say.
Well, you know what? I maybe in another interview. We'll tee it up.
I'll have to get back to you in a year or something.
Okay.
Judging by your LinkedIn profile, because I kind of snoop around when I'm getting guests on the show, and on your LinkedIn profile, it looks like you've founded a few companies. Did I see that right?
You did see that correct. I have a habit of, when something good comes along, I can immediately do a 180 or a 90 degree turn on a dime. And that's sort of been the way my life has sort of led itself through all of this stuff. So yes, I founded quite a few. One of the companies was Kipasa.com, which was the first internet company totally focused on the U.S. Hispanic community. Okay. And that was during the dot-com boom in the late 90s. So there was a lot of action there. It grew to be about $500 million in market cap. Started another company that was going to address the online gig community and economy, both here and abroad. And so a few things. And now I'm working on a little company that is getting back to religious roots. And I must tell you that working with these South Africans living in Nashville and the religious component, they came up with a wonderful idea to make it easier for people to give to people and causes they care about. Using blockchain technology and social networking and taking out the middleman, using the sophistication and security of that. So that's based out of Switzerland. It's called Godcoin, GODCOIN.com. So that site is more for the ICO community, since we'll be doing a public offering over in Switzerland. So yeah, it's nice to be in Crypto Valley. I will tell you that there are a lot of nice people there. It's similar to Silicon Valley. There are really three main technology centers. One is Silicon Valley, one is Berlin, believe it or not, and the other one is in Crypto Valley. And these guys in Crypto Valley, they're every bit as smart and good as everybody in Silicon Valley, but they are not jaded. They're just really nice people.
So you seem to have a lot of connection with Germany.
I do.
And as I said at the start, you're not in Germany, but you're a listener of the show. What is your connection actually with Germany? What is the fascination? Why have you such close ties with Germany?
Well, my family comes from Augsburg, and they were sort of a bordering on an aristocratic family. My grandfather and his brother-in-law were partners in a Die Chemische Fabrik Versay, which is something they don't always talk about, a suburb of Augsburg. And and so that's where they lived, at Friedrichstraße 14, ganz in der Nähe vom Bahnhof. And so that's sort of my attachment. I tried to get my mom to speak German to me because she and my grandmother were always speaking German. But she couldn't teach me because my mother spoke Kinderdeutsch. So that just wasn't possible at that time. And so I had to do it the old-fashioned way. But that was the basis of my fascination with Germany, and started my whole sojourn on learning the language at university at UCLA, going to the Goethe Institute on Murnau am Staffelsee, and then continuing on and going back and visiting again.
So let's get to that stage now. How old were you? You said you studied at the Goethe Institute in Murnau am Staffelsee. How old were you when you came across?
Actually, when I came over to the Goethe Institute, I was not a young man. I was 30 years old. So I was one of the older people, but it was such an eclectic class from all over. It was a wonderful experience. It's a wonderful city, a lot of walking, beautiful. It was interesting to see people riding BMW motorcycles in full leathers with umbrellas just in case. So it was a new experience for me.
You were there to study German specifically at the Goethe Institute.
I was there to study German specifically, but I brought along my guitar just in case. Because I was, at that time, a professional bebop jazz guitarist, and I performed both in the U.S. and abroad, usually subbing for people like Joe Pass, who some of your listeners may be familiar with.
So this is one of the reasons why I just thought I had to get you on the show, because you kind of throw that in there that first of all, you founded a few companies. You casually also just were a professional bebop jazz guitarist at one point in time.
True. But when I was over in Murnau, I went to Munich, and I'd always take my guitar with me, and I ended up being able to sit in at the Unterfahrt Cafe. And I had met somebody there who sort of came out to me. We started talking, and he lived in Hersching. And turned out he was a guitar aficionado and had a huge assemblage of guitars. So we got to know each other. We became friends. And then he set up a little interesting excursion for us. So he picked me up in Murnau. And as we're driving through Murnau, we were going to Hugelfang. And it was a beautiful day listening to Chaka Khan. It's perfect. Not exactly German music. And he had called ahead and assembled all of his friends to meet at this club. And they closed the club, and it was just us jamming. And there was this guy there with a handlebar mustache singing Bavarian blues, which was just a wonderful, new experience for me. So it was a lot of fun, wholly unexpected, but really great.
So tell me more about that time in Murnau am Staffelsee. What decade are we talking about at this time?
We're talking mid-'80s.
Mid-'80s. Okay, so mid-'80s. What was like that? That was kind of 4 years before the wall came down. Was there a lot of tension, or was life pretty easy going there? What was your impression generally of life at the time?
Well, at that time, it seemed to be pretty easy going, although I have a caveat for that. which came a little later. Because that same year, and now it's going to start to sound normal. I was working on a movie as the CFO that was being produced in Zagreb and Otočić in Yugoslavia before they disintegrated. And over there was a completely different experience. But in Murnau, everything seemed to be okay. Everybody was very nice. The school, was very supportive of their economy, and they reciprocated. So it was nice.
So how much time did you spend in Murnau?
About a month and a half. It was the cheapest way to travel. Honestly, to go to the Goethe Institute and have accommodations is cheaper than flying and going on vacation for 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
you just have these pesky German lessons in between.
Yeah, that's okay. But you know what? They were fun and I enjoyed them, so it was good.
And then what was kind of the follow on from there? Did you head back to the US straight away, or?
I did. And then ended up coming back again after working in Zagreb. I flew back to Augsburg, and I found a place. And thank God, I say that sarcastically, that the room that I had rented was it seemed like the 27th floor, and I barely made it up there. Right. It was nice bathroom facilities. I don't know how any human being over a 5 foot could even fit in there, but that being said, it was okay. Little experiences like going to McDonald's and people wanting to clear my plate before I was finished. But I will tell you, in Augsburg, I did have some experiences that changed me just a tad. When I first got off, it was during at 2005. I think it's Fires where they were celebrating the 2000 celebration and also opening the synagogues, reopening. Right. Okay. So they were welcoming a lot of the Jewish community back throughout Germany. And I did end up going to the opening of that synagogue with my grandfather's partner, who took very good care of me. And we went together, and the men were on the first level with the Bavaria bishop and the second level with the women. It was a very meaningful moment. But when I came off of the train, I happened to meet a few people, one in particular, Gitti Althammer.
Okay.
And she was working for Augsburg and helping to greet people coming in. And Gitti and I had a friendship spanning several decades. But I had a chance to sort of hang out with her. And also, during her breaks, we'd go eat in the commissary at the train station. And that's where the stuff came out. Because you're talking about the old guard German.
Right.
And my German at that point was fairly good. So I can understand what everybody was saying, but I could also be appropriately responsive. And so that was an interesting experience as well.
Gitti Althammer, is she well known? Or was she well known?
She certainly was well known in Augsburg. She unfortunately developed cancer and suffered with that many years. And last year she passed away. Okay. She is fondly remembered and held in high regard at Augsburg Calling, which is another Facebook page that is everything Augsburg and programs and soccer and you name it. And so she was a big presence there. She was a German teacher and very beloved. Wonderful sense of humor.
Right. And so how long were you in Augsburg for then?
Probably a few weeks.
From what you're saying, it sounds like you were quite enamored with Germany, or at least enjoying your time immensely there. Was there any thought in your mind that you would stay there longer term?
Well, certainly that was my objective. And I spent a lot of time going back and forth between Augsburg, Murnau, and München. And so when I was in Munich, I said, you know what the heck? So I walked into a U.S. CPA auditing consulting firm in Munich to apply for a job with either them or one of their clients. And literally, while I was still there, they sent me on an interview to a Japanese technology company that was just working on LED technology, which was brand new at that time.
Wow.
And so I went through the entire interview process. And honestly, if that had gone a little better, or if I had already been a German citizen, that's where I would have been.
Right. It could have changed your life massively.
Everything. Well, I came back to the U.S. and finished up my degree at UCLA. And then I applied in the master's degree program at University of California in Santa Barbara. And most people just assume it was in business, but actually that particular application was for German. And I was accepted in the master's degree program in German at UCSB. And I had also applied to the Anderson School at UCLA for the MBA program. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners will be familiar with this little refrain. And then I met a girl.
Oh, yes.
That changed things just a tad. So UCSB, a master's degree in German didn't happen.
Right.
The MBA degree at the Anderson School did happen.
Okay.
And so that's where I went from there.
That's life, isn't it?
Yes, it's wonderful. It's been quite an experience. We've been together for almost 30 years now. It's hard to believe.
Yeah. So going back to the States, leaving Germany was not a hard thing for you to do, or was it? Did it feel like the right thing at the time, or was it just sort of a natural course of events?
Well, a part of it was, a natural progression of events. But that being said, I mean, I have an affinity for Germany, to be sure, on a very deep level.
Yeah.
There are many things I like about it. The things that people, may not particularly care for are, how difficult it is sometimes to develop relationships and friendships, and little odd peculiarities, and when you ask somebody how they are, they really tell you how they are.
Yes.
It's conversational stuff, and so you have to be very careful, especially if you think you know German, and even worse, if you sound like you know German and you start making those simple mistakes and using the wrong word in the wrong situation, which did happen to me when I was in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, where I was down there just for the day after class, and I had said something that was more appropriate when addressing a dog instead of a person. So we were in this Greek restaurant, drinking ouzo, and we were able to smooth it out. But that was an exciting time for sure.
It does. I find as well that it does lead to strange situations when they can hear, wait, this guy has a very good command of German, and then you make mistakes. Then they take what you've said actually as if you meant to say, because they just assume you meant to say it. So yeah, that can lead to some strange situations. When were you last in Germany then?
Actually, I think last year.
Okay, 2018.
Last year, yeah, 2017, 2018, I was in Berlin because my daughter was going to university there, FB, and also working at BMG Music. So she normally students from here, when they do a study abroad, go for a quarter, 3 months, and she ended up staying for a year and a half.
Okay,
and also working at there. So it was worked out nice.
So she also has a love for Germany then.
She does, mostly fostered through my interest and love for it. So yes, absolutely. She was very, very excited to get her citizenship as well with me, because she finally motivated me to do the second and what turned out to be the last necessary push to get citizenship. So we both got it a few weeks ago. So I'm going in for my passport and ID card in a couple of weeks.
That's exciting. So
it's very exciting.
So how were you able to get your German passport, and was it specifically that your daughter was over here, or just in general that your love for Germany that made you get the dual citizenship?
Well, it was a strong desire for me, because that's my family history and background, number one. I certainly have an affinity for it. I know the language. But also when they emigrated during World War II, uncharacteristically so, usually when, because our family is Jewish, so typically when people, and not just Jews, but Jews also, when they were stripped of their citizenship by the Nazis, they were stripped of their citizenship as groups.
Right.
But for some reason, still unknown to anyone, including the consulate here in Los Angeles, every member of my family was individually singled out and stripped of their citizenship. Wow. So they came over here stateless and then became naturalized here in the U.S. Okay. But because of Article 116, Article 116, that's a provision where people and the family, in the future generations of those who were stripped of their citizenship, can apply and get, as they consider it, their citizenship back. Yeah. So they really weren't issuing me a new passport and a new certificate of citizenship. They were just reissuing perfunctorily what, in their opinion, I already had. Right. And so just formalizing it. So that's how we did it. Yeah. And I see a lot of people in the consulate here trying to get that.
Yeah, I can imagine. But that's quite an interesting story about how your parents left. What can you go into a bit of the situation of exactly how it came about that they left?
They lived, as I said, at Friedrichstrasse 14, which is now a 4-story office building, but they had a flat there. And they were doing reasonably well at that time. And the economy was good. And my grandfather was friends with Hermann Goering.
Oh, right.
Bottom line.
Good grief.
So all these guys had grown up with each other.
Okay.
So Nazis are going around trying to kick the Jews out, take over their homes, abscond with all of their material possessions and money. And Hermann Goering gave him a heads up the first time. So they came over, and my grandmother, she was a very strong woman. So the bottom line is she kicked him out the first time.
Just kicked out the Nazi.
She just kicked him out. So the second time, she knew that wasn't going to be possible. So she went to get a passport for her and my mother. And at that time, now when you get a passport for your children, they get their own individual passport. But back then, in particular in Germany, your children were included on your passport with pictures, etc. So I still have her original passport, as you know, stamped by the Third Reich. Yeah. And so they went via Switzerland to get out. It was not easy. Lost a lot. Came over with virtually nothing to New York. And then my grandmother moved out here and worked for a Webster Dictionary, an encyclopedia when that was Britannica, when that was possible. Mm-hmm. And then became a piano teacher and sort of ensconced herself in the German community here, because there were a lot of her friends in Augsburg in particular. It was a very small community, so everybody knew everybody, and they were always getting together. The Feuchtwangers, who gifted their entire library to USC, and people like that were always over, and they were always talking and just chewing the fat. That's a new idiomatic phrase for your listeners who are German speaking.
Chewing the fat.
And chewing the fat. And so that's how she lived her life, just teaching piano to multiple generations. And she was beloved and highly regarded, and she had a wonderful sense of humor, So that's it was a very tough exit. So, so there are a lot of stories of, what had happened over there, and, my uncle getting beaten up, walking through alleys at school. And it was just a very unpleasant, uncomfortable, and unsure time. And it bothered everybody for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And amazing that they were able to make a new life for themselves, and a good new life over in USA.
Thank God. Absolutely. God bless them.
Yeah. Michael, I'm interested in the differences that you see between modern Germany and the Germany that you knew in the 80s. I mean, how is the zeitgeist different? I know there's a lot of politics that has changed and that kind of thing, but what is the essential differences between Germany of today and Germany of then?
Well, I can tell you back then it was much easier. There were less people, less development, less immediacy in terms of need for gratification and need for information. The internet didn't exist, so it was a much slower pace. And there were certainly pros and cons, positives and disadvantages to that. But that's one of the things that appeal to me. Now it's completely different, in particular in Berlin, Friedrichshain, especially. It's just, there's so many people, these hotbeds of little groups of individuals, and just there's so much going on. Everybody's so busy, so much activity, so much new business, so many conversations. It's almost a little overload. Mm-hmm. I see so many websites now and social networking sites, and and podcasts too, and all of these sites, whether it's Twitter or Facebook. When you really think about it, they're sort of, just for the people that are involved in that site and in that social, online community. And it's sort of like a digital echo chamber, but people need to be connected. And that's what I think is one of the strongest takeaways for me about my last time in Berlin.
Yeah. I think Germany, in comparison to a lot of other countries, is still quite chilled out in some ways, because a lot of the expats that I talk to over here, one of the things that they value about being in Germany is the kind of slower pace of life. And I think a lot of that has to do with the limited work weeks, and a lot of policing, whether people are working too many hours, if companies are being unfair to people, a lot of unionization and so on. So I think it contributes to a very, very chilled way of life, but still, in comparison to a few decades ago, it's completely revved up and sped up.
Well, there's a high energy for sure, but I will say that even with everything you just said, notwithstanding that, when you have to catch a bus, or a train, or the U-Bahn, and there are a billion people on it, and you're packed like sardines, and it's essentially 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and you have to rush to get to work, you feel
that's it. That's true. That is true. Yeah, the old U-Bahn at rush hour.
But the gig economy is making all of that a little easier, so that's a good thing.
So, with you having German citizenship and your affinity to Germany, and also the project that you're working with in Switzerland, do you have any plans to come over to Germany at some point, or maybe to move over here?
Certainly on an ongoing, short-term repeating basis at the minimum. Absolutely. I mean, the goal is, when you're an entrepreneur, sometimes things work out and sometimes they don't. And all things being equal, with the expectation that it does, then that will open up a whole bunch of opportunities and options. And then I can bring the family over and they can visit. And it's a lot easier and much more enjoyable to travel when you're over in Europe, throughout Europe, versus having to come from the States. I mean, I love listening to your podcast. I love reading all the expat books and everything, and a lot of it really applies. And dealing with bureaucracy and getting your numbers and registering all of that stuff. And then, but a lot of it, I realized that I've sort of fast forwarded past that, just due to the fact that I finally have citizenship.
That's a good feeling. It gives you a lot of options, and I'm a big fan of having options. You never know when you need to call on it.
Me too. Yeah. Oh, me too. Absolutely. We're in the same place.
Yeah. So, Michael, we got in touch because you messaged me to say that you were enjoying the podcast and that I should keep it up. And I can't tell you how much messages like that mean to me, because I've just started the podcast. I think this, not even at episode 20 yet. So it's always amazing to hear things like that. So thank you for that message. And thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate your willingness to come on.
Well, Sean, I really appreciate your having me and giving me the opportunity to sort of tell my story and spread my message just a little further. And I look forward to all of your upcoming episodes.
Yeah. And where can people find you if you want people to find you?
Well, God, I mean, I've got 692 online accounts, and each one of them has a separate 30-character password. I've been around a long time. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I mean, you name the site, I'm there. I used to be on Twitch, not anymore. MySpace doesn't exist. I'm all over.
Right. I will post a link to your LinkedIn profile.
Great.
I think that might be
that would be great.
In the show notes, and people can connect with you if they want to connect with you.
Terrific. That would be great. I look forward to it.
And I need you to send me photos of the tattoo when you get it.
Yes, sir. I will do so. Spoken like a true German.
Jawohl.
Jawohl.
Michael, thanks so much for joining me for the chat.
Thanks a lot, Sean.
So interesting story, especially interesting to hear how his grandparents had to leave the country, as many Jewish people did back then, but were able to fortunately start a new life in the States, which at the end led to Michael Silverman having this love affair with Germany. So very interesting to hear the effect that Germany has. Before I get out of here, I want to talk about some discussions that have been going on in the Expat Life Germany Facebook group. In episode 15 called Defining Expat, I discussed about the many different definitions that people have in their minds of expats. And a lot of people have been making posts about the meaning of expat to them. And it is quite interesting to see how different the definitions are from person to person. So just to give you some example, Vlad wrote to me. He's from Romania, and he's actually going to be on this show coming up in the next few weeks. But he wrote in the Facebook group, I am also an EU citizen, but I still consider myself to be an expat and an immigrant to the Germans. One does not exclude the other, I think. Then a previous guest on the show, Noah, he was a guest on episode 3. He wrote that he was surprised when I invited him for an expat interview. And in his mind, and this is very interesting, in his mind, he sees himself as an immigrant because subconsciously he believes that you use the word expat for people who have a home country that has living conditions that are equal to or better than the host country. So that was a very interesting definition, and that's the definition that's in Noah's mind. So yeah, it just goes on to prove the point that everyone seems to have a different idea of what this word expat means. Fiona wrote, she's always thought of herself as an expat because she's not in her home country, and I quote her comment here. According to the definition, my husband is the expat and not me because he moved here with his job and I came with him. I've never thought of it in any other terms. How funny. How funny indeed, Fiona. And Shannon, who has been on the show as well, on the episode called Church Bells and Bicycles, she wrote that she has recently been introduced to the term and concept of privileged migration, which is quite an interesting way of looking at it, and I think sums up the way that a lot of people use the word expat. Steph Fuccio, who runs the Geopats podcast, also wrote about her reasoning for using the term geopat, and she discusses a lot about her thoughts of expats, and she says, don't know exactly how big the geopat umbrella is, but I love thinking and chatting about it, hate the conclusion and condescension in some versions of expat, but it is a commonly used term that enough people use it without the baggage. So, ... And I agree. A lot of people do use it without the baggage, like me. And I know several other people as well. So a very interesting discussion, very interesting talk about the term. And that's the kind of discussion that you can have in the Facebook group. So join it, get involved in the discussion. You also have the ability to talk directly to a lot of the guests that come on the show. Many of them are in the Facebook group. Michael Silberman as well, he just joined. And you can ask them questions directly if you have any comments or questions about their episode. So yeah, join the group. If you're on social media, Instagram, Expat Life Germany, you can find me on Twitter as well, expatlifede, or you can go to the website expatlifegermany.de, where you can find lots of stuff, by the way, lots of things, past episodes, blog posts, etc., etc. And that's it. I will speak to you next week. Auf Wiederhören.